Imagine a world where the invisible hand of the market guides every action, every choice, every life. A world where wealth grows unchecked, yet moral decay quietly spreads beneath the glittering surface. This is not a dystopian novel or a modern warning about Wall Street crashes. This is the vision and the hidden caution laid down by a single man over 2 centuries ago. Adam Smith, the so-called father of capitalism, did not just chart the mechanics of markets. He foresaw a fundamental tension. The pursuit of profit can thrive, but without morality, society itself teeters on the brink. Today, as billionaires rise, inequality deepens, and financial systems tremble, we return to Smith's warnings with a sense of urgency. What exactly did he say, and why have we ignored it? Adam Smith was born in 1723 in Kirkcaldy, Scotland, in a world vastly different from our own, but strangely familiar. The Industrial Revolution had not yet transformed Europe, yet trade, colonial ambitions, and financial speculation were already reshaping lives. Guilds controlled crafts, merchants navigated complex networks of credit, and nascent banks were creating money almost from thin air. In this environment, wealth and morality were tightly intertwined. Communities expected honesty, fairness, and a sense of shared responsibility. Smith's early life introduced him to philosophy and moral reasoning, not just economics. He studied at the University of Glasgow and later at Oxford, absorbing ideas about human nature, ethics, and justice. Here, he encountered thinkers who debated the essence of human behavior. Are humans inherently selfish? Or is there a moral compass guiding even the most profit-driven decisions? Smith would carry these questions into his seminal works, crafting a framework that merged the mechanics of trade with the ethics of conduct. Smith's first major work, The Theory of Moral Sentiments, published in 1759, shocked readers by suggesting that morality is not merely a social construct but a practical guide for living, even in economic matters. He argued that humans possess an innate capacity for empathy, what he called sympathy, and that ethical behavior is not a luxury but a necessity for society to function. Long before he wrote The Wealth of Nations, Smith was already laying the foundation for understanding money not as an end, but as a tool bound by human conscience. This idea was radical. In a time when merchants and financiers were celebrated solely for wealth accumulation, Smith insisted that morality underpins markets. Profit, he suggested, must coexist with responsibility. Unchecked self-interest might generate innovation and efficiency, but it also risks exploitation, fraud, and social instability. In 1776, Smith published The Wealth of Nations, a book that would cement his place as the father of modern economics. Here, he introduced the concept of the invisible hand, suggesting that individuals, pursuing their own interests, could unintentionally benefit society. At first glance, this idea was a celebration of capitalism. Free markets, Smith claimed, allow resources to flow efficiently, encourage specialization, and incentivize innovation. Yet, embedded in the same pages was a cautionary note often overlooked. Smith warned that markets alone cannot guarantee justice or fairness. Without ethical boundaries, the invisible hand can fail, producing monopolies, corruption, and inequality. In other words, Smith celebrated the potential of capitalism, but only if anchored by human conscience. History has repeatedly tested Smith's warnings. By the late 18th and early 19th centuries, industrialization accelerated, and factories multiplied. Labor conditions worsened, child labor surged, and social hierarchies hardened. Wealth was increasingly concentrated among factory owners and financiers, while workers struggled to survive. These developments reflected a fundamental cause-and-effect pattern Smith had anticipated. Profit-driven systems generate growth, yes, but without moral checks, they also produce suffering and social unrest. The breaking point emerges when society tolerates exploitation as the cost of progress. Inequality grows, trust erodes, and crises, financial, social, or political, become inevitable. The consequences of ignoring Smith's warnings are evident in both history and modern times. Consider the Great Depression of 1929. Excessive speculation, lack of transparency, and greed-driven decisions led to the collapse of markets and widespread poverty. Millions lost jobs, homes, and savings. Fast forward to the 2008 financial crisis, and the pattern repeats. Banks engaged in risky lending, investors chased short-term gains, and regulatory oversight lagged behind innovation. While the mechanisms were more complex, the cause was the same: Economic systems left unchecked by ethical responsibility inevitably create disaster. Smith's vision was not a prophecy limited to the 18th century. It is a pattern repeating across centuries. Governments, economists, and social reformers have tried to patch these failures, but the fixes often address symptoms, not causes. Labor laws, financial regulations, and corporate social responsibility initiatives mitigate harm, but they cannot fully replace the moral compass Smith deemed essential. The problem is systemic. Markets react to incentives. When profit becomes the primary incentive, morality is easily sidelined. History shows that interventions work only when they align ethical behavior with economic self-interest. Otherwise, cycles of boom and bust, exploitation, and inequality continue unabated. Today, Smith's insights are more relevant than ever. Consider these figures. The world's 26 richest individuals now hold as much wealth as the poorest 3.8 billion combined. Income inequality has widened in nearly every major economy since the early 1980s. Financial crises, from the dot-com bubble to the 2008 collapse, follow a recurring pattern. Innovation and growth drive wealth, but ethical oversight lags, producing instability. Even in corporate culture, Smith's warnings resonate. CEOs may maximize shareholder value, but without ethical consideration for employees, customers, or communities, short-term gains lead to long-term reputational and financial damage. In effect, the invisible hand functions, but not always in society's best interest. Profit requires a moral anchor. Markets flourish when human empathy and responsibility guide decisions. Wealth without conscience is fragile and unsustainable. History repeats itself. From industrialization to modern finance, ignoring ethical boundaries produces cycles of boom and bust. Smith's warnings are not antiquated. They are patterns etched into the DNA of capitalism. Checks are necessary, but not sufficient. Regulations and laws help, but they cannot replace the ethical behavior Smith championed. True stability requires integrating morality into every economic decision. We live in an era of unprecedented financial power. Global markets operate in real time, AI-driven trading outpaces human judgment, and billionaires influence politics at an unparalleled scale. Smith's lesson is simple yet profound. If morality is ignored, capitalism becomes a machine capable of extraordinary innovation, but also extraordinary destruction. Will we learn from history, or continue to treat profit as a law unto itself? Adam Smith's thinking was not limited to markets or economic growth. It was deeply intertwined with human morality and social responsibility. He emphasized that empathy, which he called sympathy, is a practical guide necessary for societal harmony and financial stability. In today's world, where wealth inequality and financial crises are widespread, Smith's moral warnings are more relevant than ever. He highlighted that if market growth is driven solely by profit, it can produce widespread social harm and inequality. The patterns seen during the Industrial Revolution and in modern financial systems confirm this. When ethics and responsibility are sidelined, capitalism can become destructive. Smith stressed the importance of social justice, ethical boundaries, and financial transparency so that economic progress remains sustainable and human-centered. Modern corporate culture and Wall Street examples echo his concerns. When CEOs focus solely on shareholder value while ignoring employees, customers, and communities, long-term harm is inevitable. According to Smith, regulations and laws can help, but they cannot replace a moral compass. Therefore, in today's capitalist system, aligning ethics with profit is essential to ensure that economic growth and social justice coexist law unto itself. If this exploration of Adam Smith has made you reconsider the ethics of wealth and the moral responsibilities behind every financial choice, share this video. Comment below with your thoughts. How can we balance ambition and conscience in today's world? And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the forces that shape money, power, and society.